Hey family, today we start a new video series entitled Extreme Marriage Makeover. Many of you have seen these makeover shows. A home was dilapidated in nature, and after some extreme changes, it is beautiful and ready to be lived in. Or someone was overweight, and after some drastic changes in diet and exercise, now they have lost a significant amount of weight. We want to do the same thing for our marriage. And we want to help you do the same thing for your marriage. We want you to experience the marriage that God has intended for you. Sometimes to get to that point, we have to do some extreme things, and hence the name of the series, Extreme Marriage Makeover. For the next few weeks, we're going to touch on a couple topics that we feel are vital, key components to making sure that this marriage makeover is a success. So we're going to jump right into it right now. The first thing that we feel is very important is the act of forgiveness. Before I get into forgiveness, I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to tell you who the story was about afterward. There was a man who married this woman. The woman's past was sketchy. She was involved in so many things that were the extreme opposite of what marriage is about. She was involved in prostitution. This man married her anyway. Throughout the course of their marriage, she cheated on him. She left. She even sold herself back into prostitution. And after every event, this man went out, sought after his wife, forgave her, and brought her back. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Hosea. If you read the book of Hosea in the Bible, you will see the things that God required of Hosea to do in his marriage. Now, that's a very extreme case. That's an extreme story. And we might not be going through some of those things in our marriages. However, there are things that we sometimes don't want to give up. Some things we don't want to let go. Some grudges that we want to hold against our spouse. And what I'm telling you today is that in order to experience the marriage that God has intended for you, in order for you to make over your marriage in an extreme fashion, you will have to forgive. Forgiveness is freeing. Without the act of forgiveness, you cannot experience the restoration that God has in store for your marriage. There are some things that you have to remember, however, when you're forgiving. A lot of times we get stuck on certain things. We think that forgiveness means that there is going to be an immediate resolution. It doesn't necessarily mean that a resolution is going to take place. There are some decisions that you might have to make after you forgive. You may have to pray earnestly to God to ask him what happens next. But the act of forgiveness itself is non-negotiable. I'm going to say that again. The act of forgiveness itself is non-negotiable. The Bible commissions us to forgive. Forgive as God has forgiven us. We'll talk about this, and this may come up in some of the other topics later on in the series, but the story of Hosea is a parallel to the way God deals with us. There's so many things that we do that are completely the opposite of the relationship that we claim to represent. However, he still takes us back. That's another story in its entirety. That could be another series by itself. But let's get back to forgiveness. It's important that you forgive your spouse. Restoration cannot take place. Anything else that we talk about in this extreme marriage makeover will not work for you if you cannot get past this first step. So, in closing, I just want to give you 6 things. 6 things that you should look to do when you are granting forgiveness. All right? First thing is you have to acknowledge your pain. You have to acknowledge that you were hurt. If you can't acknowledge that you were hurt, you can't get past that and go to the act of forgiveness. This is going to take some communication on your part. We're going to talk about communication later on in this series as well. Number 2, be specific about your future expectations. You have to let your spouse know, this is the thing that hurt me. And this is how we can keep that from happening again. Set your future expectations with your spouse. Number 3, give up your right to get even. We get hung up here. We're human. We get hung up here. We want to get even sometimes. But you cannot. You have to give up your right to get even. Your act of forgiveness, like I said before, does not always ensure a resolution. And you have to keep that in mind, regardless of whether the person gets what they deserve or not. You have to forgive. Number 4, let go of blame. Let go of blame and resentment. The energy alone that it takes for you to harbor resentment in your heart against somebody, that alone can do in your marriage. And it can hurt you physically. Number 5, communicate the act of forgiveness. Don't just say in your mind, oh, I'm going to let it go. I'm not going to think about it. It's all right. You know what? I'm just not going to deal with it. It has to be an act. You have to open your mouth and tell your spouse that you forgive them. They need to hear that, and you need to hear yourself say that. And we'll talk about some of those things later on as well. And number 6, work towards reconciliation. It is important that this is a very important step. If you think about those other shows that you've seen, you can want a beautiful home all you want. But if the work is not being put in to make that home beautiful, no makeover is achieved. The same way, if you want to lose weight and you don't ever do anything about it, it's not going to happen. It's the same way in marriage. After you forgive, if you are committed to the success of your relationship and you are committed to achieving an extreme marriage makeover, you will now have to put in the work to reconciliation. I want you guys to remember this. It is important for you to forgive. God has forgiven us. It is our duty for us to forgive our spouse. Now, I want to throw this in there. There are some extreme cases. There really are some individuals who are going through some extreme situations in their marriage. Does it mean that you cannot forgive? No. You must still forgive. What you may have to do afterward is enlist the help of a professional. You will have to pray earnestly to God to see what the next steps are after you forgive, but you must forgive. I want to leave you with that. This is the first step in the extreme marriage makeover. Forgive. We want you to continue to join us, though. We're going to talk about some things that we feel are important. Now, we're just going to touch on these things very quickly and briefly and let them go. However, this will be a full-blown seminar. I'm speaking that into existence right now. But for now, God bless. Remember to forgive, and let's work together to achieving an extreme marriage makeover. God bless.